Good morning. Welcome in to Herd at Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage at the lovely Herd at Sports Bar and Grill. What's up, DB?
Oh, you know.
Oh, yeah, but still, you know.
No, nothing. It's Wednesday, so we're through the middle of the week.
We're halfway there, just like Bon Jovi.
Halfway there. Oh, yeah, living on a prayer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know
that wasn't too bad.
No, it's,
it kind of fit. It's pretty good.
I mean, it's halfway there. It's in the song.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could fit more.
Well, it's a little too easy, like a little low hanging, and I know you don't want me to. What did you say yesterday when I hit you with a line and you said it was cheesy? Who'd you call me?
I don't remember who it was.
Oh, that's.
It's
how profound it was.
You're being cheesy. It's all right.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Just out here being.
It's not easy, right?
You're like out here, cheeseburger Eddie. It's not easy being cheesy.
Yep. You already know.
Yeah, we got a good day for you. Should we set up the lineup already?
Yeah, I mean you can
if we want to.
Yeah,
I mean, coming up at 8, we got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7.
Sizzle.
At 8:30, we got our guy Kevin Suits from 1011 News, and then we'll talk to Mark Wisdom at 9:30 from the Pinnacle Bank Championship. That's coming up here in just a few weeks. August will be here before you know it.
Before you know it.
I do know it.
Me too.
We're coming up. We got like 3 weeks left.
Well, I mean,
then we're there.
We got a staff meeting this morning. I'm numb.
We gotta go to Indy in a couple weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks from today, actually, we will be in Indy, probably doing this show, and then listening to Nebraska Talk.
Yeah.
Are you guys going?
On a Wednesday.
Yeah, we're going.
We are going. Doing a couple shows from Indianapolis.
Yeah. Not all that excited.
I know you're pumped about it. I know you're just super jazzed.
You know,
I can see it.
It's a long time to be on the road. I'm not typical. I don't, keep in mind I haven't been on vacation and it's double-digit years.
Okay.
So I'm not a big multi-stay hotel guy.
Like multiple days?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not my thing.
I mean, it's 2 whole days. I think you can power through.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
We're adults here. I think we can manage.
That's fine.
I mean, maybe.
Adults in age, at least.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Sort of, kind of.
Well, maybe.
Creature of habit.
I'm
missing something.
What are you, a couple of marbles or?
Unlike you, it's not chromosomes. So I'll take that trade off. Oh, wow. Hitting them early. You need to be in Vegas at the Big 12 Media Days.
Oh, Mike Gundy just can't help himself, can he?
Nope. That's one of those guys. And I kind of, like, full disclosure, I wouldn't say like him.
I used to kind of like him.
But he is a really good coach. So
yeah.
It's like, he typically gets the benefit of the doubt, but not a good day for old Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I used to have kind of an infatuation with him after the I'm a man, I'm 40.
Yeah, and Lord knows you're great at liking something and then all of a sudden not. You have some severe commitment issues.
No, I learn new information and I'm like, okay, I'm good there. It's called, growing.
What's it called?
It's called growing.
Is that what it is?
When you take in new information and then you allow that information to change your opinion based on having a better set of facts.
Yeah.
It's also, some people call it the scientific method. I'll just call it growing as a person.
Yeah.
It's all right if you're not a fan of it, but I try and do it every once in a while.
I haven't done that for like 40 years, so.
Well, that's a different kind of growth, Shano. I used to be kind of a fan. I thought the I'm a man, I'm 40 thing was funny. But it turns out it was a lot more Jim Schlossnagle freaking out at the media than it was defending his player. And so that didn't, that kind of soured me on him a while ago when that sort of all like the backstory behind the whole, I think it was Bobby Reed was one of the quarterbacks and that whole situation. And then, he's had some tough looks along the way. Not just physically with the mullet, but just, as the way he acts a little bit. And then yesterday,
You think he dyed it that way yesterday intentionally, like the dark and light, the contrast?
I don't know. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could be
He's
like
way past midlife crisis. No,
unless he lives
way past, but
I mean, in the technical like sense of the term, he'd have to live to like 110 for this to be a midlife crisis. So that's up there, you know.
yeah, your ability to be literal this morning is going to get you in trouble, but you keep it up.
You gonna slap my hand?
See, the cool thing about me is you got to be able to take as good as you give.
Well, I'm right here. I keep showing up.
Well,
he did not seem super concerned about his guy Ollie's DUI.
Yeah.
That was a little jarring, I thought.
well, I don't know. I mean, I think so. I thought a couple of things were true. Number one was incredibly insensitive. Just the inability to read the room.
Yep.
Is probably the most egregious. Now, let's not act like we didn't sit here and try to parse through blowing .11.
Yeah, versus
Right.
a .08. Yeah,
Like
100%.
we talked about that.
We did. Yeah.
And I said, I wonder if it was, 2 airplane bottles, or where was he coming from, or that wasn't
the two open
that
containers, yeah.
wasn't as high as I thought. So, like I did, and we did, rationalize the low BA.
Yeah.
Right. Spent 12 minutes doing that.
100%.
Maybe that's something you do in Omaha, Nebraska on a statewide show,
Mhm.
and you don't do at Big 12 Media Days. But I do understand that if he has new information and he didn't feel in his head, he was like, because if we're being honest,
Mhm.
those that have been in situations, and let's say you don't get pulled over, let's say you're just rolling around.
Yeah.
How many people do you think when they read that, they said, that could have been me?
Yeah.
No,
I understand, and I understand.
So I understand what he was initially trying to get at.
So do I.
He just continued to double down on the lack of sensitivity and
I thought he was way too casual about it.
the message that you're sending, like,
That was the other issue.
hey, like,
Not a
it's
big
all
deal.
good here.
Yeah. Because there's a difference between you and me talking about it as people that do not have influence over Ollie Gordon's situation and his head football coach, who theoretically should be helping him grow and be accountable
because
as a person.
and he's got to lead other people in that
Yes,
locker room,
right.
right? So are you saying, hey,
Like, would the third string running back get the same treatment?
and I know you guys may have, 2, 3, 4, which, by the way, at a certain age, if you're not seasoned isn't the word, but if your tolerance is different,
Yeah, if you don't drink very often.
I think there could potentially, there's a big difference between going from 2 beers to 4 beers.
100%.
And he just kind of said it
Like real casual.
just real flippantly.
And there's also like time frame matters too, right? If you have 2 beers over 3 hours,
yeah, so like
or 4 beers
parsing
in
through
an hour is a different deal.
just all the everything that was said, and then like the follow up with the no punishment, he's gonna play.
His
And if it's
punishments,
real
he's gonna have
punishment,
to
it's
carry.
50 carries.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness. You went from really bad to, I'm not sure. Like, you just have to forget about it and hope to play football because there's no salvaging it.
No,
I didn't understand the later tweet either because
my issue was I felt like he didn't take it seriously. That's where, like, you get parsed through what he actually said and whatever, just the general tone of his comments throughout the day, whether it's initially with the, well, I've done this 1,000 times, or his punishments, he's going to have to carry the ball. Like that, it all just felt like, oh, he doesn't take this seriously at all. And we're coming off of a guy in this same sport being killed by a drunk driver, 3 days ago?
it just
like the timing,
the inability to
just have any level of sensitivity towards the situation.
And it's almost like sometimes I like to think of you like this. Like when I just let you go, you're inevitably going to say something that I can just like, yeah, not very smart. But the more he talked, I'm like,
Just kept getting worse.
somebody cut him off.
And again,
Because the
what's one of my biggest pet peeves? Right?
fudge.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, hang
I'll-
on, let me get
So get the notebook out.
Robbie's book of pet peeves.
That's not a big enough book.
Yeah, it's
So one of my biggest
it's a
pet
lot.
peeves is when people publicly make stupid comments. Would have been so much easier to say something that wasn't idiotic, right? What do you say when somebody says
So
about?
basically, that's why you don't like people. That happens
It happens a lot.
every day.
But it was a lot of my issue with the Jim Schlossnagle thing. There was another one recently where it's like, hey, would have been really easy just to not say something stupid there. And all Gundy has to say when asked about punishment is
We'll handle it internally.
we're handling it internally.
Yeah.
100%. How many millions of coaches say that anytime they don't want to discuss a punishment?
Yeah.
Hey, we're just handling it internally. He's not going to miss any games. We're handling the punishment internally. Done. Right? That happens all the time. Instead, he goes off and that's where I'm like, okay, you're either intentionally not taking this seriously or you're just an idiot.
Yeah, and guaranteed, he has to know somebody or somebody in his sphere of influence has to have been impacted by drunk driving.
Doesn't he know Dana Holgerson?
Just
I think didn't they coach together?
Yeah.
Like Dana Holgerson has had a lot of issues with DUIs.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go very far.
well aware.
Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no way there's not a player on his team that has not been negatively impacted by somebody getting a DUI
Yeah, just
or driving under the whatever.
and it was a
right?
couple of mixed messages, right? Because then there was a moment of, hey, this is not unacceptable. This is a teaching moment. We have to grow and learn from this to kind of back to being casual again.
But like, how are you teaching if you're like, I've done this 1,000 times? He's
Yeah.
going to carry the ball 50 times.
I didn't know. Yeah. So the saying out loud part of the thousands of times, I thought, and the devil can be in the details. I thought he was speaking, and it just didn't land well.
Right. I thought he meant probably about having a couple beers and then
Yeah.
being okay to drive.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was referring to, I'm going to guess himself, not in general.
Yes, that's what it seemed like he was talking about.
You
his
know, because
personal
he
experiences.
did use I.
Yeah.
I
thought to myself, well, I've done that 1,000 times.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he internalized and personalized and experienced, and he said it out loud.
I thought what he was trying to do there was to not demonize Ollie Gordon by being like, hey, this is something that happens.
Mhm.
But in doing so, he made it seem like he felt really casually about the situation. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't like even trying to read the best into it. He still missed.
I just can't imagine with the thousands upon thousands of people that have been impacted.
Mhm.
I just can't imagine the PR.
Yeah.
I mean, it was everywhere yesterday, and it's like people are either going to want, because his tweet on Twitter is not going to be
Yeah.
an apology, but even if you apologize, it's like
Like you said what you said.
yeah, are you really? I don't know. I just assume you don't say anything because it's gonna be hard to land unless you know. I've said this 2 million times, and I believe this to be true. You know what a real apology is? Change behavior.
Mhm.
That's it.
It's an action versus words thing.
A real apology is change behavior.
And that's not to say that the words aren't important because they are,
So it's like,
but the words mean a lot less if there's not action followed by it.
yeah, I mean, the words can be important. People say they're sorry all the time. You know, we don't say that. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that, to the moral stance of what heartfelt I'm sorry, but you know, we say early on and talk to kids early on. It's like, hey, will you forgive me? Because I think sometimes it's just the power of the verbiage. Because what do
Sure.
people say now? Oh, you're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught. Like people, they don't. It just doesn't resonate.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it has to be the words.
No,
I'm
you know, you don't
sorry,
have to defend it.
or
I'm
I
just talking about the
apologize.
difference
Yeah.
between
I do think
the
the
two and
verbiage
how.
matters.
I mean, it can. It just
Yeah.
depends on who's receiving the information. But I mean, now going forward, like he doubled down over time
Mhm.
because you went from the podium to the side to the individual thing, so you had some time
Mhm.
to be like,
Maybe think over it and try and clarify things a little bit better.
yeah. But the mic drop was the 50 carries,
Yeah.
and I was like,
That's not
I don't know.
It's not a great look.
I don't know, but it's going to be an interesting. It's already an interesting setup because you're having it in Vegas at a hotel, right?
Where what? Like an Arizona kid couldn't come in because he wasn't old enough.
Boise State.
Boise State. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a Heisman candidate,
but couldn't come in because he's not old enough to be in the casino.
Yeah.
Like so, you already have some like awkwardness. In general, you're sort of in Pac-12 country, and you just pillage their conference a little bit.
I just think it's just interesting to have the conference there with so many potential vices to have.
Well, and you've had some high-profile incidents of gambling issues in all of sports, but including college football as well, with like the Iowa State thing.
I do think it's a very By the way, I like Coach Campbell's haircut. Did you see?
I saw it.
Cut his hair off.
Did like little Jason.
I like him, so it's.
I do too. I want to hang out with him.
Yeah, I think you'd like him.
I just want to follow him around at work for like.
Although I don't know, like, I wasn't around him enough to get his like sarcasm either. But he does strike me as the type of guy that would be like, yeah, that's not funny.
Even if he didn't like me as a person, which is fine. I just want to watch him work. Like I just want to follow him around professionally.
He is. I liked it. I liked what he had to say. The conference is interesting, and I like your Mark a little bit.
Yeah.
What hasn't he tried?
Yeah. He's trying to keep that conference alive.
Yeah, they're in better.
There was a time where it seemed like they were the most likely candidate to fold.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And that is obviously no longer the case. They're in better shape than the ACC is right now, even though the ACC has
times 1,000
better programs currently, right? Because those better programs are trying to GTFO, like they want nothing to do with the ACC anymore. Like the Big 12, they're definitely second fiddle, but they're at least on decently solid ground, as solid as anybody not the Big 10 or SEC can be. So he's done a good job in that sense, and he has to get credit for that. But before we get too far away from the Big 12, let's get to Michigan Lance. He wants to talk about Mike Gundy. Lance, what's going on? What's up, Lance?
Hey, morning, boys.
What's up?
Hey, I love you guys to tell about Mike Gundy's hair. Because, DB, I was in early on Ryan Day.
Yeah.
And dyeing his beard and hair. I'm like, Jim Harbaugh isn't losing to a guy like that. He's still worried about his look and playing tough football. So
you did at the time. I thought that was petty. I don't know how much it's still relevant, but you can say those kinds of things when you clearly have scoreboard, right? Because Michigan is wearing Ohio State out.
Yeah, and that's been for now. Like I said that a couple years ago. It wasn't just now. Hey, so I saw somebody put in the chat about Dylan Raiola, the positives about him transferring in high school.
Yeah.
Right. So it's funny because we're selfish as human beings. We are selfish, right?
Just by nature.
So yeah, and so nobody has a problem with Dylan Raiola and his track record of high schools, right? It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, according to Nebraska fans.
Well, when he wasn't ours, we had a little bit of a problem, but I don't know if that might have been the silent majority.
Yep. And so what I'm getting at is I'm at home back in Omaha a couple weeks ago, and I'm at the 7-on-7 paddle tournament, and I'm seeing a lot of people I haven't seen in a while, and parents of players, and so I run into a couple players, a couple dads that I know that tried to get their kids into Westside. And contrary to popular belief, Damon Benning does not talk to his friends a lot. So I never had this conversation with him. And so here's the thing. So, and I'm like,
you remind me of my co-host. Neither one of you guys can help yourself. But keep going, carry on.
Right. And so I'm like, so they're telling me about how, we couldn't get in. They're kind of putting the cap on transfers. They're getting a lot of heat. And I'm like, what? Like, it's wild because it's okay when it's for you. But it's a problem when it's not for you. Right?
Yeah.
And we need to keep having these conversations because that makes no sense that and I don't know, like I said, I don't know the facts, but I heard it from a couple people, parents and people who weren't parents, that were just like, yeah, West Side are getting some heat, and so they're kind of taking it easy on trash. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Well, here's the truth. Are there players that are at other schools currently that have transferred that wanted to come to West Side? Yes. Are they not at West Side because of heat? No, not at West Side because it didn't seem to be a good fit. Right there's some so, and the other thing is, and I hate to keep saying this, like, information is easily gathered, so you can look at it. You can look at enrollment in district, out of district, opted in, what grades they opted in, and it never was what people thought, especially compared to other schools. Now, if you wanted to make the case, hey, there's a group of kids that should have or could have or easily been in another school district, sure, I'll take it. Opting in as eighth graders. My son is included. But the misnomer about, like, we're not like a couple of other schools out here. You know what I mean? So it's not like, and I don't care. And you know this. We've had now this conversation we've had. I don't care what other schools do. I don't. Right. Listen, Gretna still kicked our tail at state. We still got to line up and play Millard South. I don't care what Millard North is doing. North has lost a handful. Bellevue West has gotten some, lost some. Like, that stuff doesn't. Listen. You're just trying to do right by kids, man. That's it.
That's it. Hey, and kids and families are trying to do right by them.
Yeah. I do agree. I do agree with the whole good for the goose, good for the gander thing. It's a lot of hypocrisy, that's for sure.
Most definitely.
Appreciate the call, Lance.
Yeah, so hey, man.
We'll be back with more Herd at Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back to Herd at Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here on the Pillar exterior stage. Those were the comments of one Mike Gundy.
Are you afraid to say you understand what he was trying to say?
No, I said that when I understand.
Because I think a lot of us that are just upset that are like retweeting the deal last night.
I understand what he was trying to say, because we talked about this when it originally happened with Ollie Gordon. Is like, and I admitted that like, I think most of us who have ever drank alcohol, especially when we were younger, made decisions that we shouldn't have, and they were bad decisions, and most people were okay. Unfortunately, like, the downside of the not okay is catastrophic, right? So yeah, I can sit here and be like, yeah, I know what he was trying to say. Thousands of times is aggressive, but my bigger issue, maybe it was being hyperbolic, whatever. Like, my bigger issue with him was the general tone of casualness he was taking to the situation as a leader of that young man.
I think that, because I think that's 100. That's the thing.
Because I can sit here and say, like, yeah, I made bad decisions when I was young too, and if I had a chance to tell anybody to do it differently, I would.
Okay, so let me ask you something, because I think this is important in leadership. This is one of those things that I'm referring to with Coach Rule and Nebraska, and an opportunity to grow, right? From what's gone on with coaching changes and staff changes alike at the university, where you have an opportunity to grow, right? Okay, this happened. I'm an overseer of an institution. How do we get better? If you ask yourselves those questions, I think you're allowed a little bit of grace. If there's this segment where you're evaluating the situation, whether it's real time or you've had some time to gather details, where you can grow from it. So if he would have talked about, if he gives the analogy, and he said, but he then goes into some sort of This is how we grow. This is how we get better. And it's different than I told him. I brought him here because you're going to have to face if he would have said it, if he would have shown some plan or an ideology or a philosophy on how he doesn't like for this to permeate his program or these are young men, would we have been okay with that initial part of what he said?
Yeah, if he had landed the plane in any sort of way.
I'm glad.
It's not, like I said, it's not the actual.
But I just think we have to have the adult conversation,
100%.
right? Because instead of just bitching and moaning that a guy said something that is deemed insensitive, because it was.
Yeah.
If we could, like, I don't want the pound of flesh. It's how'd we get here and what's next?
Yeah, and my concern is, like, if you are a leader of young people and you don't take certain things seriously, then that's detrimental to those young people, right? That's part of the.
So if he says, hey, I've done this and this and this, 2-3 beers, I thought to myself, I've done that 1,000 times and I've gotten lucky, and that's not right.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's not right, because you shouldn't have to count on being lucky to make sure you don't hurt somebody or yourself.
I'm just.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just processing through.
Right? Like, if he goes and like,
because sometimes people don't talk or share information like we want them.
Yeah.
To dictate it. So I'm just.
But here's where I have a really hard time with, and this kind of goes back to that pet peeve of mine, right? Is he knew these questions were coming. He knew these types of questions were coming.
I think,
like, it's not.
This is crazy. I think we want him to be somebody he's not.
No, well, maybe, but I'm not asking him to be polished or to be.
I don't even know if it's that.
I'm asking him to take something seriously that should be taken seriously. That's what I want.
And I'm just.
And maybe he doesn't.
I'm not sure he does.
And that's my problem.
Yeah.
Like, at its core,
I understand.
That's my problem. Is that I really don't believe he does take this seriously.
I understand. I think at the end of the day, that's the part. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's the part that bothers me. I'm fully aware that that's what bothers me about this. It's not the I've done this 1,000 times or whatever. It's like the whole tone of the thing is I genuinely don't think he takes driving under the influence seriously, and that to me is
because remember when Nebraska went. I don't even know what Nebraska's is now. Nebraska may be zero tolerance. Is it 0.8?
I think it's 0.08, but there's an open container law. So if you've got an open container.
Okay, so remember when it was 0.10?
I don't. But
and then it went down to 0.08, and everybody was like, not everybody, let me not, the words are important. People are like, well, is that big of a difference? And in their scientific studies, well, that's one beer in 15 minutes or 18 minutes or whatever it was. I can't remember. This was so long ago.
Yeah. When
they made the change. If you, and I do remember some scuttlebutt about, was this going to be was this going to be a thing that was going to make that big of a deal? At what point when you're going backwards or forwards in the calculations, is it a big deal? So when he's saying what he's saying and I'm listening to him, I don't even think, like, if we're honest with ourselves, I don't think we care that he was talking about himself. We made it kind of seem like that. That's not what it was. It's that he doesn't care about anybody else.
Yeah, it's selfish,
right?
Selfish, right?
He doesn't care about any. So I think, like, that's that's the thing. They're like,
because here's the difference, right? When we hear drunk driver, single car crash, one fatality, we're like, that's too bad, but you can't drive drunk, whatever. When we hear what we did with Kyrie Jackson, and we hear doesn't appear that the 3 people that were killed were under the influence, hit by a drunk driver walks away, 3 people dead that had nothing to do with it. That's where we get mad.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not the act so much as it is the consequences that it has to other people. Right. That's what a lot of life is we don't get mad about the act itself. We get mad about the consequences to other people.
He gave you a glimpse at the tail end, and it came out of order of how he was talked to when he said, we're going to do what's best for Oklahoma State football.
Which I can live with.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that.
So I say all this to say this.
And he said something that I think actually does matter. And like, hey, you guys are making a lot of money to do this now. Like my leeway on punishment's a lot less than it used to be. That's how he feels, and I don't totally disagree with that.
See, that's the part that we don't want to talk about.
I'm fine with it
Because
that's the part I actually was like, yeah, I get that. But you know what you can say?
He was so dismissive and insensitive that we missed that part of it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm on the hook now for some fiduciary responsibilities from a fiscal standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? If my guys are saying this is what this guy's going to do and this is the return on their investment they want, I don't know if he's throwing his hands up to say, what do you want me to do? I just couldn't believe he was so. I don't even care. I'm just being honest. I don't care that he did not. I don't care that he doesn't value his own getting in and out of a vehicle that much. That's on him.
Mm-hmm.
If he can be that casual and want to skirt
that's a him problem. The problem is it's not just a him problem.
So what I'm going to say is he doesn't realize that it's not. That's what everybody thinks.
It's not about him.
Everybody thinks, when I do this or I'm behind the vehicle or the last thing they think about is other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's always, man, it's either I don't want to get in trouble or I can get through this or it's never, man, I may do something
I could hurt
stupid.
somebody else.
Yeah.
100%.
So
that I agree. That's the problem.
That's
him not valuing himself. I don't care.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, what's this? How'd we get here? we're selfish by nature.
I mean, I can get deep enough and be like, hey, we got here because people lack empathy and they lack the ability.
Just the simple devaluing of people.
They don't do a good job of seeing things that do not directly affect them.
Don't these guys have
100%?
Don't these guys have people that
That's
tell?
the biggest problem.
Don't these guys
That's what I wish people would have said so we could learn from that because other people need to hear that message.
Yeah,
because that's the problem.
I was just gonna say, don't these guys have people that can tell them what to say?
He's grown, man.
I mean,
he's
not a lot of people tell Mike Gundy what to say. We'll wrap up hour number one coming up next. Wrapping up hour number one here on Herd Out Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lula. We're here at the Herd Out Sports Bar and Grill, wrapping up a conversation on Mike Gundy and not being very good at talking to the media. I don't know. Maybe he said exactly what he wanted to say. That's a possibility.
Yeah,
we have to take that.
I thought about that. I'm like, maybe that's just who he is.
Yeah.
T-Mac says, he goes, the problem with this whole thing is he went off script instead of saying the line everyone knows or expected him to say. He said, I worked as a bouncer for years. I observe a lot of people that it appears agree with him by their actions. I know personally and honestly, I've been there. And yes, I know it's wrong. Like, I guess so. My point isn't to say, well, I've done it too, or you've done it too, or I know you've done it, because it still doesn't arrive at the root of the problem.
Yeah.
The root of the problem is the lack of self-awareness in order to correct the problem so we can keep people from dying.
Yes.
We're just selfish by nature.
We'd rather take that chance.
He still thinks what people that do that think. It's only them.
We would rather take the chance that we're not safe to drive and we hurt somebody else than we would pay for an Uber, or that we would leave our car somewhere, or that we would be inconvenienced by trying to find another way home. Like
what's the first thing I told you I would do if I could afford it?
Get a driver.
Not because and I'll have a drink, but and I said, I just don't like driving.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would ride everywhere if I could.
Yeah.
I would get a ride. I just do not enjoy driving.
And that's one of the things that I don't understand, especially now. It's easier than ever to get a ride now with Uber and Lyft and all the rideshare things. Easier than ever. And, he brought up the point about Ollie Gordon making good money now. It's like, it's not like he can't afford it.
That's the elephant in the room.
Right? It's the same thing would happen with Justin Timberlake a few weeks ago. I was like, why does Justin Timberlake drive anywhere?
Because I think there's just an innate sense of immortality.
Yeah, it's dumb.
I mean, let's not act like we don't know why. We're just afraid to talk about it.
No,
like,
I genuinely...
People are afraid to say, oh, man, you think you're invincible. Like, you think that you can pull... I mean, that's what everybody does that does it. That's what I've done. It's like...
Maybe that's where there's a disconnect for me, because...
It's like, oh, I can do this.
I've done what we're talking about, and I've learned from it,
As
right?
have I.
But maybe because of my situation, the immortality thing never crosses my mind. Ever. Like, and maybe it's because I've been sick since I was 7. Like, I don't know. That's never crossed my mind. They're like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, whatever. Like, my mind focuses on worst case scenarios all the time, right? So, like,
yeah, we definitely are different there.
So, like that. So it's possible that what you're saying is true, and I just can't identify with it because of my specific situation. But when I hear somebody like Justin Timberlake, or I hear somebody like Ollie Gordon, or whoever, anybody that has means of any kind, the first thing I think is either why don't you have a driver, or why didn't you pay for an Uber? Like, that's the thing that I fundamentally do not understand, is pay for an Uber or hire a driver. Like, if you're Justin Timberlake, hire a driver. Like, this is not hard, right? If you're Ollie Gordon, get an Uber. Like, this is not, there's really simple solutions, especially now. Like, I get that before it was harder. It's not anymore. There's really no excuses anymore. Mm-hmm. And not that they were good excuses before, but even the bad ones are kind of out the window. So maybe there is a immortality thing to it that I just don't personally understand. But I think it goes back to the thing we were talking about before, where some people, especially before we grow and learn and mature, have a really hard time understanding that the consequences to other people of our actions are often greater than the consequences to ourselves.
Yeah.
And then caring that the consequences to other people can be greater than the ones to ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, it took me a little bit of time to think that if something happens to me, like, what about my family? I mean, full disclosure, that was way down the list until my dad got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 11, 12, which was 13 years ago, which puts me in my high 30s.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad, right? But full disclosure, it just didn't dawn on me.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of it's...
And I remember, and it's been incremental change. It wasn't overnight.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember hearing a sermon, and it basically was about, being a good steward of young people, and in particular, your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, the bottom line, and it was one of those lines that I think he used. I always go back to A Time to Kill, when Matthew McConaughey, was it Matthew McConaughey who was the lawyer?
Somebody, I think so.
One of those guys. And he's like, now imagine they were white. And at the end it was, what will your kids put on your headstone, or what would be in your epitaph? And I just was like, oh, shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Right? Yeah. So it's like, huh. So when I look at coaches and I see like what's going on college campuses and some of the vices and things, and I just think to myself, I just think you have I think you have a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, listen, so I'm saying two things at once. Yeah, there's the moral ground, right? But then there's also this other thing where if I'm coaching and I'm in 2024, 2025, 2026, and I want to stay ahead of the game, I want people that genuinely care about other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this chaotic deal where, prices are high and people are stressed and politics get in the way and we have all these complaints. People just complain. I think the great equalizer is in the people that will come out on top will be those that genuinely care about other people, because we're so deprived and we're so starved of personal interaction. I think it's the difference maker. I think it's the set apart. I think it's the thing that can I've said this for the last 3 years with Nebraska. If you want to combat the transfer portal, make it a place that people are afraid to leave because it is so good on the way that you make them feel. Because I think that's what people want.
That right there is what you said, that like the way you can make people feel will trump everything else.
Yeah,
because all the things that people are chasing other places, whether it's money, whether it's fame, whether it's human connection, whatever it is, right? All of those things that we think will make us happy, all we're chasing is feeling a certain way.
So I say all that to say, when I'm listening to this last night, I couldn't believe that he missed the mark on, if you want to get out of this, because I'm like you, I caught the he makes a lot of money thing in the punish. Like,
I get it.
It resonated with me. He's saying I would have been, if I was him, I'd have, and you're just going to step all the way in it. But he missed the part where he had the opportunity to say, hey, listen, I know it's about this a lot. It's very transactional, but I want my players to know that I care about their well-being. And I wanted him to say all these things. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, that maybe just isn't who he is. So he's going to have to play in that transactional world. And it's, to land the plane, it's the number one reason why I went into the little 7-8 minute deal yesterday about Nebraska having a chance to recalibrate and reset how they want to do business. And maybe it's not a drastic change. Maybe it's you just reiterate. Hey, listen, when you're not on your game, the world can get you. It's a lot going on out there. Stay close to one another. Be concerned about one another. And, just the ability to have hard conversations with people you care about. Burr sent me something yesterday on TikTok, and I'll send it over to you. And there's, of course, some coarse language, but I can't repeat. But it says, it basically is a guy talking about needing three friends. Person that loves you enough to tell you the truth, even when it's going to hurt your feelings. Somebody that's a ride or die, no matter what, and somebody that can listen and put their arm around you when you want to spill your guts. He says you get those three things, like,
the hardest one to find. I think the hardest one to find.
Somebody to tell you the truth when it's going to hurt your feelings. Yeah, 100%.
Because everybody else is afraid about what that means for them.
Yeah, we don't. This just means you don't care enough.
That's why I tell people to go to counseling, because I was like, they don't care enough about you to lie.
Yeah, that's why I love Rayola's line about
no feelings involved.
No feelings, sometimes it's just like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Because when the standard is the standard.
When I have these conversations with people in whether it's relationships or friendships or I'm coaching, there'll be some things that I say, and it's just like, do you even care? And I want to say in my head, I'm only saying it because I do.
Yeah.
If I don't, then I don't.
If I didn't care, I just cut bait and I'm out,
man.
Right? That's how I am. People know that.
And you figure out in a hurry, like, who can handle the information and who can't, right? It can become counterproductive. That's when you got to move on.
Coming up next, we got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. What's up, BC?
Not a lot. How are you guys?
BC, how we doing, bud?
Doing pretty well. Pretty well rested. Just got back. Yesterday was like my first day back after my little vacation. And so I'm kind of easing my way into it. I took her kind of easy yesterday. I'm not going to lie.
It's like a vacation or a staycation? Did you actually go somewhere?
Minnesota, up to the cabin.
Okay.
Did some fishing. Kind of got hooked on pickleball. with my brother on a makeshift court in our driveway.
The cool thing about that is you guys are. I don't know, man. It appears I'm kind of I'm vibing with your relationship with your brother. You guys do a lot, man. Siblings, that's pretty cool. It's not always that way.
Yeah, we're buddies. He's like 11 or 12 years younger than me, so we got an age gap, but we've always been homies, and hopefully that'll keep being the case.
Was he wearing you out or what? Would we go?
Yeah,
are we going with
good.
use? Yeah,
he's good. He knows how to get you. He knows how to control the kitchen, I guess, is the terminology they use on the pickleball court. I was kind of picking it up, but I know that if I go to a serious court, I'm going to get some lessons taught to me. And I know one of the serious courts is in the concourse of the stadium where Matt Rule and those guys play sometimes. So I gotta up my game in case they ever throw some like media tournament or something. That would be nice.
I think they should throw a media tournament. I'd be excited about that. That's right up my alley.
Well, hopefully it's a year away, so I got some time. But yeah, so that was my week.
You're catching 3 in a row for the Twins too. Like, that's not bad.
Jose Miranda got a hit about every time he was up while we were up there, so that was cool. So yeah, Twins they've been streaking the right way most of the way the last month or two. So I can't even say like, kind of sarcastic things about them like I usually do.
So were you like us, where it took us a day and a half after the Butler did it and Coach Coop news that we didn't really talk about Hammerbeck committing when the sky was falling? We talk about news dumps. How about a July 3rd, I'm in?
Yeah, that was probably of all the commitments in the last year or two that didn't get as much attention. He's probably near the top of the list, and not because he's not a good player. At 24/7 Sports, I think rankings are going to show that pretty soon too. I think he's a potential 4-star guy that they got. One of those Midwestern, just tough dudes who can do a lot of different things. Great athlete for his size. He doesn't do a lot of like media interviews, which is fine. I could see myself being that way if I were a recruit, which doesn't sound like it's good for me. But because of that, sometimes those guys don't quite get as much, there's just not quite as many stories about them throughout the recruiting process and all that. But it doesn't mean they're less of a player or anything like that. So he just quietly went about his recruitment all the way up until here it is. I'm pledging in Nebraska right before the fireworks go off. And then probably unbeknownst to him, there was other news that was sort of going to take over the weekend around here.
Yeah, different kind of fireworks after the 4th for Nebraska. Yes. So you've got Sean Hammerbeck, you've got Houston Kahina-Torres, you've got Brian Tapu now in the last 2 weeks, basically. If that's all Nebraska gets, I know David Sanders is still out there. I'm sure there's other people out there that I don't have off the top of my head right now. But if that's all Nebraska gets as far as the offensive line class, how do you feel?
I feel good. I was the one who came and read off like 12 names a couple weeks ago on here when people were kind of, not you guys, I don't think, but there were some people a little panicked because they had shot their shot with 3 or 4 linemen and it hadn't gone their way. They'd maybe been 2nd or 3rd on the list. I said, just look at the last 2-3 years of who they've recruited. The names are there. They have guys in the system that are young players that are there to develop. These guys can fit right in there with them. And then you let the guys put their elbows out, see who goes to work, who can put on the right weight and figure stuff out over the next couple of years. And, and you sort it out from there. But I think these guys fit into that whole group. There's going to be, with the addition of those 3 guys, 12 to 14 names over the last 3 cycles that could have a say on Nebraska's offensive line a couple of years from now. So I think they got what they want. Obviously, if David Sanders were someone you could reel into the boat, that would be huge, and there would be great reason for celebration for that. But as they stand, Donnie, he continues to do a nice job recruiting. And I think a big part of it is guys come here, they see his room, they see like, okay, that is really truly a family that they've got going, and that's not over the top. They're just a close group, and even the guys who don't pick here talk about it. They're kind of impressed. They're impressed by it. They're like, I could see why a guy would want to go there. So it doesn't surprise me that he's been able to have recruiting success when you actually step back and kind of take it all in.
One of the things I think he's good at, and I think you'll get it after this, but Coach Butler's a guy that I wanted to study up on as much as I could. So I'm trying to dig up interviews and old stuff. And my buddy Lance sent me a podcast that he did about football DNA and why it's important in players. And when you're talking about guys like Hammerbeck or guys that Raiola gravitates towards, or even guys in this recruiting class where Coach Rule will say, he's just a football player. You think that the football DNA is something that is overstated? Because I do feel like now that it has kind of a word that coaches are using, it is something that I think Nebraska's staff looks at in particular.
I think it's understated because I think there are a lot of guys who can play the game, not a lot, but there's that group of guys who can play the game at a really high level to get recruited, to have the opportunities to play big-time college football. And then there's a percentage of the pie within that they were just really good at it. And I'm not saying they don't like the game, but maybe it's not their driving force or anything like that. It's not the thing. They're just good at it. And I think they have found a lot of guys when I interview them, it feels like that really love football. I mean, they just can't get enough of it, some of them. And they're sharp too. That's something that has really jumped out at me in the last two classes. Like, I did an interview with Jeremiah Jones a week or two ago, and first time I'd ever talked to him. Just really impressive dude. I mean, great athlete out of Kentucky. He's like 6'5", 215, something like that. Could play on either side of the ball, but just like the way he's talked through the game, the way he's like, was taking notes on his official visit about everything. I think they're in on guys like that, and they do their research on, sort of some of the mentalities attached to these players. And it's not just all about what does their huddle film or the tape beyond that show, but it's also like, how's this guy process things? How much is he a worker? And it feels like they're on the right track. It just sort of from my surface interviews with the type of guys who are like that.
BC, you talk to a lot of these guys, obviously, and you have a different perspective on it than a lot of people do. It seems, kind of going along that line of thinking, it seems like there's this group of guys that think or seem to feel that being recruited and getting to the big time college is the end goal. And then there's guys that think either doing well in college, making the NFL, whatever, or just playing football for as long as humanly possible is the end goal. Is that something you've noticed, or would you not really describe it that way?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it feels like in the last class or two, there's just a certain drive and way of, they're just sharp guys. Like, I mean, throw Damon's son in there. I mean, Caleb, when you talk to him in an interview, does it at age, when he was 16, 17, was doing those interviews better than I could have imagined, speaking to a stranger on the phone, asking me random questions, at that age. And I feel like when you do this stuff, you kind of like, man, these guys, they've got some guys who just they got that quick blinker, it's impressive to talk to them. My wife listens to me do the interview sometimes because I'll have it on my speakerphone. And full disclosure, she's not like a big sports fan, doesn't care that much about it, but she like listens in and she's just like, man, those kids, they're good. They're smart, they're sharp. Like it kind of goes against the whole idea. Like they used to be a couple decades ago against like, this is where the meatheads are, right? That was like, oh, they play football and stuff like that. No, these are some of our best guys are getting up at 5 a.m. and they're driven to do something. They've been driven for a long time. And I just feel like Nebraska has some guys that seem like that drive isn't about to stop anytime soon. They know this is just one level. It's kind of to the question you're asking. and now there's a next level to try to reach. And you hope you can find those guys who just keep staying inspired by it, and they know there's more out there, even though they've had success at this level.
BC, when you're so from a like a development standpoint, we've talked the last handful of weeks about this sequential development, right? This guy is at the top. He'll play X amount of plays. You get this guy ready. You get this guy in the fold. Can you imagine conversations, or do you hear conversations with recruits where they talk about everything but the immediacy of playing time? Because it doesn't seem like that comes up in a lot of the write-ups. And I only ask the question because that was never a thing when I was being recruited, right? I always looked at it like, in guys that I knew that were being recruited, right, okay, it's a process. I'm probably going to take a year if I can play early. I'd like to not redshirt, but gosh, redshirt freshman, sophomore. Like, you start to build this thing in your head of how it's supposed to look, but you don't say it out loud, right? Because you don't want to relent. You want to go compete. Do you get that sense? Because I don't hear playing time come up a ton.
I get the sense that they're not ever promised anything. It's just an opportunity. Like, you're going to get a great, all the resources are here to succeed. You're going to have a great academic setup behind you. You're going to have facilities that are some of the tops in the country. The coaches are going to say, which they believe fully, like, we're going to develop you as well as you can be developed. But it doesn't mean you're going to come in and just play. You're going to have to go earn it. I don't know what the percentage is across the country, if there are college coaches who do say, sort of make promises. But the one thing that stands out is, I think you're right, that definitely doesn't happen with this coaching staff. There's not an idea that, like, okay, this is going to be given to you in a year or so. That goes to the 5-star quarterback that people think is going to be the starting quarterback 2 months from now. Like, right. I think there's a sense of, like, he still has to go earn it. And I think guys see that, and that's meaningful too. Like, when they see, like, okay, they're going to go compete, and as long as it's a fair shake, and if I go to a practice and I see that they're stacking up reps the way they are, they're going to give everybody an opportunity. That's all I can want. If I'm a competitor, that should drive me, and that should be enough. Like, I'm going to get my fair chance to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen right away, I think this is a staff that also, they want to show how much they care about a player, and that if you're not playing that first year or second year, the staff still has their best intentions, at heart. And so, maybe you don't just transfer right away if things aren't going your way. Maybe you keep developing and you see that, oh, this guy over here did it for 3 years and then he got on the field. Maybe I can do the same thing. So hopefully you build that sense within your program where there is a little bit of staying power. And I'm not against the guy who just sometimes says, you know what, it's not working for me here, and he leaves. That's the way it is. But it is impressive how few guys have left, when you really think about it, compared to the rest of the country. Nebraska, I think, is probably in a pretty good category as far as lack of transfers at this point.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, as you're talking through that answer there, it kind of got me thinking a little bit. I think we think a lot about guys that transfer as they do it. Selfish is probably too strong of a word, but for their own reasons, that they want playing time, they want to be, they want to get their shot to go to the NFL or whatever. But is it possible that that's one of the only ways that they get positive reinforcement from a coaching staff, and that, like, they get the indication that, like, oh yeah, we still love you, we still whatever. And then with Nebraska, they get that other places, so the playing time part doesn't feel as life and death. Am I overthinking this, or, like, that's the first thing that popped in my mind when you were talking through that?
Yeah, I don't know. You got to understand who really. I don't think I'm going to answer your question the way you framed it, but you just got to understand, like, who are the coaches out there on the recruiting trail that are about more than the football, and they want me to succeed no matter what. And I really think that's a big deal to a lot of the recruits that I talk to, with with Nebraska. They feel that vibe, like these guys are beyond just like, oh, this guy's going to be a successful linebacker in year 2 for me. It's like, no, we're going to get you here, and we want to develop you as a person and as a player, and we sure hope you take off as a player, of course, and we know you want that too. But we're going to give you all the other stuff. And if you really build that sort of trust with a player, then I think a program is really cooking, because a guy might sit there after his first or second year where he's not playing as much and say, you know what, I wish I were on the field more, but I see why I'm not yet. And I see that these guys do care. They want my best result. And there's also guys smart enough to know a lot of these recruits pick up. There's guys who tell them fibs, like there's guys that, in the transfer portal who college coaches will talk to, and they'll act like they really want them there. Well, they don't necessarily want them to be their starting left guard. They might want them to be their seventh guard or their seventh lineman. You know what I mean? Like that, you got to understand that some of the stuff you're getting told isn't just going to come true with the snap of a finger. And so if a person really cares about you, at the program you're at, you might say, okay, I'm going to stay with this and just see how this plays out. So I do think they've got some of that going right now. People could say that's a homerific view on it, but I think it's backed up by the fact we just haven't seen as many transfers as some other places. I do think there's some of that going on over there.
BC, it was your board that got me started with the indispensable, the 24 and 24, and I know you guys are doing your countdown for most indispensable officially now, and it's no coincidence. Well, maybe it is that Lloyd is checking in at 13. When you look at the wide receiver group as a whole, and you talk relationship to Raiola's success, who needs to step up first in this kind of symbiotic relationship?
Among the receivers?
Between receivers and the quarterback position.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if I can put one above the other on that. I mean, I think it just has to be, there's a trust with that too, of building it up, where you're doing your job, you're running the route at the, where you're supposed to be, where the quarterback can believe you're going to be there on time. And then the quarterback's got to prove over time he can put it there. So I think that's a both sides sort of deal to make the relationship work. But I think
it seems like we would assume it's the receivers, even though some guys that are ranked fairly high on this list at least have a year under their belt. Raiola doesn't have any. But I think we think it's the receivers first. I kind of like your answer because it is cohesive. But do you get the feel we think receivers need to step up?
I don't know that it's receivers first. I think think about Dylan Raiola's situation, walking in with all that hype, that he earned. He gathered it. But guys might not say this out loud, but if you're on the team and you're a third-year guy or something, you're looking at the young guy. You might like him at first, like his personality, but you're kind of, taking mental notes about him. Like, what's this guy all about? Like, I've read I've seen his name everywhere. Like, is he really a workhorse? Is he the guy that's going to get up? Corey Barney, who I think is his roommate, wants to go catch passes at 6 a.m. Is he that dude who's going to be like, all right, I'm there? I think that stuff is big, like in these, 8 months leading up to the game, as much as anything. It sounds like he's done really well with that. Doesn't surprise me, knowing his family, and what we've been, heard about Dylan before. But I think that's a big part of the first step kind of was like, okay, the young guy with all the hype is showing the receivers, I'm here to work. Whatever happened before, whatever was attached to me, that doesn't mean anything now. I got to go earn it every day. And if you can get that across to your crew that you're throwing to, makes them work that much harder too, I got to think. So I don't know. That's kind of how I thought of it off the cuff. It's a good question. Kind of makes you think. But I have to also believe it helps in a room where it feels like right now there are like 8 or 9 names you could throw out there at receiver. And it's like, that would push you, right? I mean, Janarian Bonner entered the equation again this offseason at that position. And so, like, he can take reps. And, Alex Bullock played like the third most reps of anybody on the offense last year or something like that. So they've got guys like that. And then Banks and Nair are here. And Lloyd and Coleman are going to want theirs, and Barney. There's just a lot of guys to try to build up that rotation. And I would think that competitiveness just to be higher up on the depth chart should be a driving factor too. So that they've seemed to have things going behind the scenes at that position. I'm also fully understanding and with the crowd that's like, all right, let's just see it now. Because I've had seasons before where I've thought Nebraska's wide receivers could have a nice group of 7 or 8 guys, and then late October it's like 2 or 3 that you really trust. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think they're going to go above that number, but I'm in that category. I put it before us, and then we'll nod our heads after that.
Have we had a group? So I know it went from Toure to Palmer, and it seems kind of individual based. Am I missing anything in the last 6-7 years where it's been the group?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of. There's been like times where you're like, okay, they got 2 or 3 really guys. But I feel like too often you've gotten a game in November and you looked out there, like last year was nobody's fault really because they were working. There had been so many injuries like Marcus Washington and IGC, who I didn't even mention, by the way. IGC could be in the mix. That you had guys who were playing probably ahead of their schedule. But Billy Kemp comes up limping in one of the games in November, and I remember looking out there, and I'm like, "Who are they going to here?" And it was not a knock on Malachi or anybody like that. It's just like they're like a year ahead of where they're supposed to be out there right now, trying to play against Wisconsin or whatever. And this year I feel like maybe you can cross that bridge. That's the big thing, and if they can do it, then I feel like maybe you can stay over on that side and keep it going there. But they've just got to get across it first.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we appreciate the time. As always, we'll talk to you next week.
Yep, thanks a lot, guys.
That is Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. I actually want to get back into the 24/7, 24, and 24 because they put out a list of guys that they left off. They haven't gotten all the way through the list of guys that are on. We got a list of guys that got left off, and I've got some issues. I'd like to maybe pick at a little bit there.
And to think Deion goes today in Vegas. I thought that would be your thing.
Oh, no. We'll have plenty of that tomorrow, I'm sure. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula. More Herd Sports Radio coming up next. Halfway through the show here on Herd Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by Kevin Suits from 1011 News in Lincoln. What's up, Kevin?
Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you boys.
How are we doing? You're back kind of settled in and acclimated, I see, right?
Yeah, we're back. We're cooking, and July. Once July 4th is over, it is, it's about to happen. Fall, normal sports routine.
I remember I was talking about this with Greg Sharp yesterday or day before, and he brought something up that was interesting. I remember for us, the July 4th, that holiday was kind of the line of demarcation where, for football, where it's like, okay, enough is enough. It's time to dial in. And we still had 8 more weeks almost before camp would open, 7. July 4th hits now, and they opened on the 28th. Their line of demarcation could have been someplace in the middle of, June 1st. Like, it just seems like it's been expedited and ramped up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, when practice starts in July, it really just shrinks the entire month because July is like vacation month for a lot of people,
Yeah.
Because June, you got the College World Series. Well, May is the end of the school year. June, you got the CWS and the NCAA baseball tournament. And then, there's a little window between the end of the CWS and July 4th. And then after that, it's like, all right, well, now I need to do something with my family, and have a little time for myself. And then you catch your breath before camp. And now, like, that whole window is totally shrunk. So it's getting real here. And I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it like we got to start prepping some things and getting locked and loaded because the fall I hate to say the fall because it's going to be July, but that's kind of the way it all runs together this year.
What's the turnaround for you realistically from the time you get back from Indy to the first day of camp, which for all intents and purposes, if you include travel, is 3 days?
Oh, man, I don't even know, because I'm going to sneak a couple extra days in there on the way back from Indy with some family.
Ooh.
So I've even made it even smaller. So
there's no room.
No, there really is not. It's just going to happen so quickly, and that's where because now it's really the line between the 4th of July and Indianapolis, and with Indy being in the extended stay, usually you guys we could buzz in, cover Big Ten Media Days, hear from all the coaches, come right back, and it doesn't take. Now it takes up like an entire week when you factor in the prep and the travel in, the travel out. That whole week, it's in a couple weeks. It's shot. It's going to be all work that week.
Kevin, so, okay, I got to ask you, you mentioned, so spend some time with your family. I saw on your Twitter that, you had some baseball tournaments this weekend, but also I got to ask about the mustache first and foremost. Like what were you feeling there when that decision was made?
Well, what I was feeling was I had to be a dad and I had to be a man of my word.
Okay.
So I told my son, they had state baseball this past week, and you guys know I love watching his team play. They're so fun. And I told him, if you guys make it to Sunday, because I had the beard going, I said, if you make it to Sunday, I'm going with the mustache. And I've never done it publicly in my entire life. Maybe in our house. That's it. And my older boy, he's got a picture saved because one time I did just the mustache. He goes, I got to see that again. He took a picture. So that's not for public consumption. And I told my youngest, if you guys make it to Sunday, I'm doing just the mustache. And he goes, absolutely not. That is not going to happen. And I wasn't thinking they were going to make it to Sunday. And Sunday is the Final Four. You got to go to the semifinals. And after they won their second game on Saturday, he came right up to me. I said, congrats, buddy. He looked and smiled, and he pointed to my face. He goes, you got to do it. So I did. I shaved down. I've been rocking a mustache, and it's disgusting. It looks terrible, and it needs to be gone soon. And the funny thing is, Sunday morning, the opponent for my son's team was the Lincoln Cyclones, which is the organization that Will Bolt's son plays for. So I saw Will Sunday morning, and he's smiling from ear to ear, and he goes, I see you got the Sunday stash. And he said it so kindly and politely. And if I could read between the lines and read through his eyes, it was like, Kevin, that is not a good look.
Kev, we spent the first, handful of segments talking about Big 12 Media Days, which is code for really just Mike Gundy. Today, Deion takes center stage. I kind of like your Mark as a commissioner because he's kind of no holds barred. Like they'll try just about anything, and so when you're looking at how to do media days, and are you looking? How can I say this? When coaches make themselves the storyline, in your history, how does that typically work out for the programs during that season?
Well, I would say, I guess the first thought that I had come to my mind there, DB, was, Dan Hawkins, when he was the coach of Colorado, everybody went to Dan Hawkins. And how'd that play out? Right?
Yeah.
Because Dan would just, he would make himself the story. He was such a great quote. He was fascinating, and you never knew what he was going to say. So to answer your question, how does that play out in the season? Not well.
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
I could be missing some, but it doesn't seem like it.
And I don't want to insinuate that Oklahoma State's going to have a bad year because clearly Mike Gundy was on every headline across the Big 12 footprint yesterday.
Yeah.
But I still think they're going to be good because Ollie Gordon, he's a really good running back. So I don't know that it's as simple as coach steals the show, not a good season. There's more to it, but it does tend to seem to think that when a coach does something, it doesn't go the best. When you stay below the fray, I think that you're in a better spot there. And even there have been examples of Nebraska, when they became the headline at Big Ten Media Days for the wrong reasons, those years didn't play out the best.
Yeah.
You're saying opening statement gate didn't go well for us?
That's the you took the words out of my. I wasn't going to say it, but you did, Robbie.
I am fascinated though to see if the second year of doing this in a big conference for Deion, how much it's about Colorado football. You know what I mean? Like I'm very curious because week 2 is going to come in a hurry. So deep down, I hope not much. Right? I hope he makes it all about. But I am curious to see what the learning curve is in year 2 on this stage.
Well, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. One, the Big 12 is so much bigger, so Colorado is just another piece of the puzzle. But it's Deion, and of course, everybody's going to flock to Deion. And there are legitimate questions about Colorado this year with the way that last year fell off and everybody that left the program. So how does he feel about the current roster? So it's not like a team you could totally avoid. And that's part of the fascination with Colorado being at Big 12 Media Days. I just can't believe we're talking about Big 12 Media Days right after the 4th of July.
Yeah.
This keeps inching closer and closer. It's wild. It's good because it's getting us all prepped for football. But yeah, I guess when you have these large conferences, you can't just make it a one-day shot, and you got to stretch it a little bit longer.
All right, Kevin. So, like, speaking of Deion, I just got to make sure when your son, who I believe is currently 10, according to your Twitter, when he makes it big in baseball, don't make people go to a Lil Wayne concert just to see him rap, okay? Like, that's what you need to avoid as a dad to make sure he continues having success.
I appreciate that, parenting advice, like that. Okay, that is number one. Whatever, don't go to Lil Wayne. Got it done. I think we're clear there.
Kevin, we appreciate the time as always. And you kind of buried the league. Congrats on the state championship as well.
Appreciate that. That goes all to the boys and the coach. It's such a fun season.
Seems like
honestly, I'm sad to see it be done.
It seems like you have a good time with the parents too. Sports are always more enjoyable when you get along when you have cool parents.
I mean, the dads are trying to plan a get together. We were just together for the last 3 months, and we want another night together. Seriously, Friday night we're getting together.
That's cool.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign. Kevin, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, be well, guys.
Thanks, Kev.
That's Kevin Suits from
Definitely beats the alternative.
11 News in Link. Oh yeah. You don't want to have tough hangs around there. Yeah. I appreciate that he takes parenting advice from me because I obviously have a lot of experience there. What I do have experience in is going to teamjackfoundation.org. It's the place you need to go to figure out how to get involved with this great organization. All they're trying to do is find better treatments for childhood brain cancer and one day a cure. And you can get involved. You can volunteer. You can donate directly on the page. You can see what events are coming up. And you can see where all your resources are going with the projects they're funding. That's teamjackfoundation.org. DB and I will be back next here for more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Robbie Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Make sure you stick around during the commercials of our stream. You can find out what's going on over here. There's specials. There's live music.
Mm-hmm. I saw that folks can go to the patio and in Gretna.
There's patio. There's merch. There's all sorts of stuff.
I do like the little merch though.
Got a little merch station over there.
I have the 7 Not 8 T-shirt.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Let's go, baby. Woo.
I've got your shirt.
Which one?
Well, it says Full Disclosure.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I like that one.
Got that one.
I didn't want to. I felt a little too close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went a little different.
If they ever make a Tough Hang T-shirt, like I'm definitely getting that one.
Well, you should ask Pac Wyatt where he got his. He had his made, and that was teeny. The princess was wearing that.
I don't think his kids would fit me. That'd be a little.
Well, I mean, he's got a T-shirt maker.
Maybe, yeah.
You should ask Triple B. I'm sure he could whip something up for you.
Well, I'm hoping just get our people to whip it up. Get the official gear.
Yeah, Tough Hang. Oh yeah, the official. It's all about.
Gotta get the official gear.
TM that thing.
Absolute freak booty.
I hate that those are drops now.
Let's go, baby.
I hate it.
Let's
so
go,
much.
baby. Woo.
Yeah, you thought I got annoyed with Shane before.
That's a panty dropper for sure. He'll get you a bite.
Shane, he's not going to be here next week to protect you. I hope you know that.
Oh my Lord, just look at that thing.
You guys just want to do a show together? That's fine.
Oh man, it's funny.
You sure? You good?
I'm good.
We were talking about
It's better than your mood because I mean you're mad the guys get left off lists and stuff. It is list season. We're almost finished with list season.
I'm not mad.
We're almost finished with list season.
I think there were some misses here.
Okay.
So our friends over Husker 24/7, we were just talking to BC a minute ago.
Everybody's up in arms about lists and rankings.
Oh, I love lists and rankings. We got some.
Everybody. I'm going to continue to reiterate this. I said this every year.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to industry guys, because most of the local guys here in the state don't have anything to do with the industry rankings.
Yes.
It is rarely accurate. Rarely. I see them every week. Right?
Yeah.
I see the guy. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm not saying I am saying in my opinion.
Yeah.
They are not even remote.
Well, I mean, we had some movement locally on some recruiting rankings.
Yeah. I don't understand it well enough to know why it happens.
I don't either.
You know, I maybe have to ask some guys, and it's weird. We just talked to a recruiting guy, and I don't understand the difference between industry and site or whatever, but I know one thing, that it's not accurate.
Well, so we had Miller North guy, Pierce Mooberry, and the On3 their personal rankings,
which is weird because we didn't speak it into existence, but for a while we were the only ones talking about the guy.
Yeah, I was.
If it wasn't for you,
Mooberry,
nobody would be talking about Pierce Mooberry.
Nobody brought him up ever. And I was like, "Hey, can we talk about Pierce Mooberry for a second?"
Well, he hasn't committed. Well, maybe he's not a take. That's always what it boils down to, right?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe he's not a take anymore. Maybe they have these positions, and then.
But I mean, I'm going back like 2 years.
No, believe me, I know.
Like this, yeah, I bother you about it a lot, but
I'm well aware.
But like, so he goes from this dude that is
Chloe was Maya's roommate. Like I'm well aware of the.
Yeah,
I get it.
But so like he goes from this guy that nobody's talking about except for you and me, to he finally gets the Nebraska offer. To okay, is he a take? Is he not a take? Whatever. And then On3 yesterday releases their new rankings on their site.
This was controversial enough to make the World Herald.
Yeah, and he was rated a 4-star, and
which good on him.
That part didn't.
But again, like no new offers. So like, what happened?
Right. So and we can get into that. But the part that surprised me more than the 4th star was that he got bumped to number 1 player in the state of Nebraska. I thought, and listen, if you have questions on how I feel about Pierce Mooberry, then you haven't been paying attention. That's fair, right?
Might be the first factual thing you said this morning.
So I thought, in whatever order, Christian Jones, Chase Lofton are the 2 best players in the state this year. Right? Like I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's
I kind of do.
You think it's a hot take that those 2 guys are the best players in the state this year?
I don't know. Like if I had to if I'm starting a team tomorrow,
yeah.
Like if I'm starting a team,
best prospects in the state. Is that better? I think as college prospects, they're the 2 best guys.
I mean, you can call me biased, but Tyson Terry is there somewhere.
Okay, that's fair.
2-way guy,
which he doesn't get nearly the love on the sites.
I don't. Again, full disclosure, practically family, but I do like being right more than being well liked.
Sure,
he's as good a 2-way player as you're going to see in the state.
Okay,
and I mean, there are people right now that'll tell you, like, you go to Iowa, you go to some other schools that wanted him to come, that think now it would be a position switch, but he's a Sunday offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Now he may not want to play offensive line, he may want to play D line, but I'm.
So you taking him over Christian or over Chase or both?
I would take him over Chase.
Okay, so call him 2 of the 3 best guys in the class in Chase and Christian. Both had been 4 stars for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I assumed that those guys were going to stay at the top of the rankings, regardless of what. So that's the part that surprised me, was Newberry moving all the way up to number 1 in the state.
I just don't know what happens over time.
That's the real question, right? Because we've seen guys commit to Nebraska and not get the bump. We've seen and I don't think he's camped. I don't think any of these guys have gone to a camp and ran new times or whatever. So that's the thing. And listen, I'm big Pierce Newberry guy, obviously big Miller North guy. If anything, I'm biased.
His teammate is really good.
Which one? Cade?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you just look at the industry rankings, Caden is ahead of Pierce.
Yes.
No.
So
they're both top 6, so that's nothing to sneeze at.
On 3 is kind of on an island with how they feel about Pierce Newberry.
Yeah.
Which, listen, I can appreciate.
24/7 is similar. 24/7 maybe have Pierce 1.
Do they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They do. I know they don't have him a 4-star, at least not yet. And I know BC said their new rankings will be coming out soon, or ratings will be coming out soon. So maybe that changes as well. But I was surprised that, since it doesn't seem like anything has changed in terms of the information we have, that big of a change was made, because now he's at 225 nationally.
Oh, I know.
According to On3.
Oh yeah.
Which again, really love that he's getting appreciated after I've been sitting here, pounding on a table for 2 years, being like, "Hey, can we talk about Pierce Newberry?"
You feel validated?
I do.
Here's my This is my favorite.
This is why I like it.
No, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Now, I've read some of these write-ups the last couple of days.
Yeah.
This is my favorite. Well, don't be surprised if he plays offense. No poop.
Yeah.
Right? That's one thing.
What if I said?
There's one thing I'm going to take some time to say, yeah.
Should have listened to us?
Because...
What's the thing I bring up every time somebody brings up Pierce Newberry?
Catching a ball in the air,
ball skills.
pointing a ball.
Ball skills. Great ball skills.
I get it. But I think people have it in their mind when they watched him make 34 tackles. It was a game on television against Papio, and it seemed like he made, Papio tried to run it down their throat.
Laying the wood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was smacking people.
Yeah.
He comes downhill in a hurry.
Secretly, I'm not going to. Yeah. I don't typically publicly fawn over.
You like him a little bit.
No, but everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But in my head, I call him pot committed.
Yeah.
Because he's all in. His chips are all in when he's coming downhill.
Yeah. He makes a decision and goes. Yeah. He comes downhill hard.
So I in my head, I call him pot committed. But it's just, and we've seen some risers. Jackson Carpenter, who I'm high on.
Getting a lot more love.
Because top 24/7, if I'm on top 24/7 right now, so it goes Jones, Lofton, Terry, Carpenter, Newberry, Ziebert, Vermas, Booth, Elijah Wayne, finally getting some love, and Popish from Papio. If you go to composite, it goes Jones, Lofton, Newberry, Vermas, Carpenter. At least they have sense enough to have Terry in the top 10. But I always like to do if I'm starting a team tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm Terry's durable. He's tough. He's kind of just getting started. Some people like to use his age against him, but let's not start that, because a lot of reclasses over the last 4 or 5 years where these dudes are old.
Also,
some 19-year-olds, right? So don't get me on. Don't handpick.
I mean, even in Nebraska's own class, wasn't McMorris old for his class?
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's not unusual.
So I don't like to pick it. I don't like to pick and choose, but it is good to see. I just don't know why.
I don't either.
Right.
And that's
it would be nice. It would be cool. It would be cool if every now and again a Nebraska thing actually warranted a bump.
Yeah.
But that doesn't feel right either. That's just me being biased.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's a Nebraska thing, so they get a bump. That would be cool to say. It's not fair. But it's not right.
No, but it's like what Coach Rule was talking about with Ohio State. Like when Ohio State offer guys, that guy gets a bump. Yeah. Right? He's like, oh, he's unranked.
It would be nice if that was a thing for once, but
yeah, Nebraska got the reputation of being good enough at talent evaluation that if they get a offer or commit, that's like, oh, that guy gets a bump. Right? That would be really cool to have that reputation.
We didn't even get to your gripe.
No, we will eventually.
And I'm curious now because you haven't told me yet.
I haven't told you. There's a list of guys that 24/7 put out that did not make their 24 and 24. I think there's at least one glaring omission here. We'll get to that next year on Herd at Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Herd at Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage at the Herd at Sports Bar and Grill. And we're brought to you by Union Omaha. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com to check out all things Union Omaha. You can get tickets to their upcoming match July 27th against Chattanooga. That's a 7 p.m. start at Werner Park. They're also here on August 3rd, that next following Saturday as well. But you can't just get tickets. You can shop. You can find out news. Got to get some of that sweet owl gear going on.
Team swag.
I like the Union Omaha swag, and you should go get some too. UnionOmaha.com is where you get it done. Where we get it done is talking about this 24/7 list.
A little bit of that W side.
Because we got a problem here, DB.
Why? What happened?
I'm going to read you the list of names of guys that they put as like their honorable mention of like, hey, these are prominent guys we left off. Okay?
All right, so who are we going to take umbrage with? We going to get Brunch, Shafe, BC?
Well, I don't know which one of those guys we're going to take umbrage with.
I mean, because those guys are kind of all in the family.
I know. I like them, but like we need to have a little discussion here.
A little one-by-one hit?
We need one
So the only guy left for the week is Bruntz.
Yeah. I was going to try and get with BC, but I wanted you and I to talk about it first. So we can hit him on next week, you know?
Well, that's kind.
So here's the list of guys that were left off. Mekhi Bear, Cam Lenhart, Ramir Johnson, Bly Hill, Riley Van Poppel, Janarin Bonner, Malachi Coleman. Just hit my mic there. Don't worry about that. Not a big deal. I'm a professional. Gabe Irvin, Malcolm Hartzog, Sua Lafotu, MJ Sherman, Chikori Barney, Jeremiah Charles.
Wow.
Justin Evans, Luke Lindemeyer, and Nate Borkacher.
All right.
Who's the guy that I have a problem with?
Well, there's several.
There's two that I have huge problems with. There are several that I have problems with. There's two, and I think one in particular. I do think there is one that is at the top of the list for me.
So number one, I'm going to get over the Borkacher thing.
Yeah, I know, because you have a little man crush. It's all right.
Even Lindemeyer.
Yeah, you love Lindemeyer.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
But those I can understand. I can understand those two being left off.
Okay, I can too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's a personal thing.
Yeah. I think they could be good, important players, but I understand them not being in the 24.
Especially Bork.
Yeah.
Like and Luke's going to play. Like they both are.
But I understand not being in the 24. I do.
Yeah. The easy one is Hartzog.
100%.
Easy one.
That's like, guys, we love you. That's a miss.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There is no world in which you can convince me he's not one of the 24 most important players on this team.
But it goes to what I've been saying. I've said this since the season ended.
What's that?
For whatever the reason, he's just a guy we don't appreciate. We think we have our mind made up that he's just not very good.
He is critical to what they're going to do in the secondary.
Try to tell people.
Critical.
I'm with you.
Whether he has to place
is corner. It my influence or
no?
Okay.
I thought this
because I don't want to.
I thought this before
because if we're wrong, we're gonna be wrong together.
We're gonna wear it.
Yeah.
But so I thought he started off the year a little rough last year. I thought he was pretty good by the end of the year.
Telling you.
And at a position where that's not his natural position, right?
I'm shocked
that he's not on there.
Yeah,
me too.
I don't even need to see the other 24.
I don't either.
I'm well aware because I followed the.
And we're not through it yet. But I don't care who
That's a miss.
There is no world in which you can convince me Malcolm Hartzog isn't one of the 24 most important or best players on this team. That's a miss.
I'm just telling you, if something
happens to a Hartzog, let's knock on wood. We're knocking on wood on that one. That's a problem because he's been playing out of position and was still pretty good. So whether he has to play corner again because either Sierra Wright's not it
just confirms
Bly Hill's not it or whatever.
It just confirms what I think. He's like the forgotten man.
He's pretty good. And he's really important to what they do.
You have to tell me. And he's a great teammate.
I was saying, you know who you never hear any problems about?
Well, he barely talks. You're not going to hear anything from him.
No,
unless
but not
he's talking
from
to
him.
his guys.
But You never hear any problems about Malcolm Hartzog.
Yeah.
If he actually gets to play safety this year,
he was actually the first guy that I thought of in Coop's departure.
Really?
Even before Caleb.
Yeah.
Because Caleb's was personal.
Yeah.
It may not have an immediate impact on playing time either way because he's not playing yet. But Hartzog was the first guy that I thought of.
Why is that?
Because he understands his skill sets.
Yeah.
Hartzog's a guy you have to be around.
Yeah. Like understand what he can do well.
Yep.
Well, hopefully Butler understands.
Well, he's a bright guy. I'm sure he'll get it. I'm shocked.
I'm shocked that he's not on the list.
Huh.
You know who my number 2 was?
Yes.
Who?
Yes.
Who's my number 2?
If I get it right, can I get another $20 lunch?
We'll add 10 to the original.
Ooh, 30?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's Van Poppel.
No.
Damn it.
No.
Should have been.
Van Poppel is like...
Should have been.
Justin Evans was my 2.
Similar
I think that's
thought process.
I think that's a miss.
Next man up.
Yeah.
Both. I told you, it wouldn't surprise me if Van Poppel... this is maybe a little
bit of a stretch,
premature,
a little bit of a little Pilates, little yoga, a little stretch there, a little
premature stipulation here. But remember, a couple months ago, I said, would not surprise me if he was a starter by the end of the season.
So if that means he's stealing snaps from either Nash or Ty. Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
He's going to be pretty.
He's going to be really, really good. I like Van Poppel a lot. The reason I have Justin Evans ahead of him is because his...
Dang, what could I have got for another extra $10?
We'll never know now. That's not true. I make bad bets all the time.
Well, that one was going to be hard, though.
Yeah.
I'm picking one out of 15.
Yeah.
That's not great odds.
The reason Justin Evans is ahead of Van Poppel for me is because direct playing time. Like, there's not obvious people standing in front of him.
And you know what's interesting is
you can make the argument there's more depth behind Evans.
He's all conference. He's postseason honors caliber by the time he's done.
Yeah. I think Justin Evans is really good. Everybody that I talk to who knows anything about offensive line tells me that Justin Evans is really good. And so I'm taking their word for it as well. And the fact that he played last year as a really young guy and that there wasn't really drop off.
And remember, he's a convert too.
Yeah. So
came in as kind of a defensive guy.
Yeah. So we don't pay a ton of attention to the positions that Coach Rule brings people in as.
And not anymore.
Because it's kind of just like they'll get in where they fit in.
And it's funny too because
can you imagine the hand wringing of Jaden Doss being a defensive back now under previous staffs? We'd be losing our minds.
I know one thing though. Pressure's on though. Don't kid yourself.
Oh, 100%. You got to win.
But I mean, you need another couple of corners.
Yeah.
Pressure's on.
100%. That's part of the reason Hartzog's really important.
I can't believe you didn't go with Van Poppel.
I think Van Poppel's 4th for me.
Okay.
Can you get the 3rd?
I'm gonna have to go on recall here.
Yeah,
maybe.
You want me to do the list again?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
It's a guy I have an affinity for.
Listen, so is the $10 edition back on?
5.
Dang.
Well, you got a strike against you.
Ja'Cory Barney.
No, come on, man.
Damn it. Shame. 0 for 2.
It's a guy I was on early last year, and I've been riding with him ever since. Cam Lenhart. I'm a big Cam Lenhart guy.
Well, so he was almost too obvious because a lot of people like Cam and he played early.
Yeah. So him being left off is what are we doing here?
Yeah, but
I love Cam Lenhart.
You gawk over Barney too, though.
I do, yeah. But I've been on Lenhart longer in terms of my affinity.
Yeah.
But it's because
he's got your head start. Yeah, you got your head start.
Yeah, he got your head start. But Barney's one I can understand.
I'm gonna have to champion this campaign for the Hartzog disrespect.
Yeah, I don't really. I'm having a hard time with that one.
I feel like I have to talk people into him.
Is it his size?
I think people think he lacks foot speed. Yeah,
I think you look at him. And you're like, that guy doesn't look like a super long, lengthy, athletic.
Yeah, the long, lengthy thing, no. You see him without his pads, he's incredible.
Yeah. But he looks more like what we would think of a running back than a defensive.
Probably, yeah.
Right?
Probably. Yeah,
so I think
that's fair.
Part of it is he doesn't match our eye test for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But he's a good football player.
Yeah.
And obviously versatile.
I'm just handing out comps, and he's not the same player, obviously. Because
Bob Sanders.
Wow, really? That's what we're on? Yes, Bob Sanders.
Yeah.
5'8", really compact. Now, Sanders was
incredible. Like, he's the high level of the body type we're talking about.
I remember Coach Parker using some cut-ups with Caleb for Sanders.
Bob Sanders.
We actually stayed extra. We were supposed to, they put us on the clock, and I was like, can we watch some more of those highlights? He was incredible.
Yeah. We forget about it because he got injured so much late in his career in Indy.
Oh.
But he was incredible.
I mean,
I feel like I should get $10 for getting Bob Sanders out of a hat.
He literally was the human eraser.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
You
remember how bad Indy's defense was when he was out?
Yeah, when you play that too like they did.
Yeah.
He's integral.
He was the linchpin.
Yeah, he's integral.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys like we used a lot of comps for. You want to know the sneaky one I use for that I have Caleb study a lot, especially in this defense potentially?
Who's that?
I'm going to go way back. And I said this because was it TK or was it Adam? Somebody, I'm going to go back and listen or look. Somebody asked me the question, what former, because you get this all the time in the offseason, what old player would I bring back for this particular defense?
Okay.
And it wasn't your typical answer from me. I have to go back to, I think he sent it to me in a DM. Who sent it?
I feel like I might go with a corner just because that's an area of need. I feel like.
Yeah.
Am I crazy there?
If you get this guy, the guy that I'm thinking, you can keep the 20.
I'm assuming it's a safety based on our conversation.
I may regret this.
Mike Brown.
No.
Okay.
Thank the Lord. I gotta have something to eat.
I mean, you haven't collected on that in like 6 months.
I'm saving it. I'm almost bottom of the barrel. I had to repurpose a November.
We'll be making
Popeye's turkey.
We'll be making another bet on Creighton basketball before you actually cash in on the last bet.
I went with who sent it to me? I went with Eric Haig.
Oh, I like Eric Haig.
And that's the role in this defense. Imagine him playing because, and I can't remember. Maybe it was TK. He went with Gomes.
Yeah, he was the peso back.
And it kind of surprised me because I thought, typically we go with like a dominant D line but he thought through the exercise and he's like, okay, what could really help this team? And he went with Gomes, and I go, Gomes is a good one. I'm not down on that, but I would go with.
I liked Eric Haig a lot. The only reason I wouldn't go Haig is I assume wouldn't he be taking Gifford's spot?
Well, he could take any of the three. They're kind of interchangeable, although there is a true rover,
and that's kind of how I view Haig.
That's Giff.
Yeah, and I view Haig mostly in that role.
Yeah,
and I don't necessarily want to replace Giff. And so that would be maybe my only pushback on Haig. I love Haig as a player, though.
Yeah, he was.
I'd probably go, like I said, I'd probably go with a corner because of the area of need.
And it's a shame I can't remember who it had to be. There's only 3 guys that get that football-y. So it's either X's and O's, TK, or wow, I'm all over the place because what he did say was
Kenny.
He's like that whole 2008, 2009 secondary with Coach White.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would have been.
Yeah. Because you're talking Prince.
I mean, those are the kinds of guys that you need running the alley.
You're talking Haig.
Yeah.
You're talking who
I got to find this.
Who was the
DM
safety that got beat on the Virginia Tech game?
Who am I missing?
O'Hanlon. Matt O'Hanlon.
Yeah. I like him as a person.
That's fine. I didn't want to be like the white safety.
LVB's finest. No, I probably would have said Philip Bland.
So I went with the guy that got beat at Virginia Tech. You knew who I was talking about. He also had 3 interceptions in a game later that year. So I'll give you the good and the bad, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the highlight of Marcus.
It was TK. And it wasn't a DM. He sent it on text.
Maybe the highlight of Marcus Vick's career right there.
Whew.
The
I thought it was not letting Drea keep the house. What?
Nothing.
Is that too pop culture?
A little bit. That's okay.
Oh.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I would take on this particular team in terms of.
And you know what? I like the way he phrased the question.
How did he say it? How did he say it?
He said, I think if I could take or add any prior non-legendary.
Okay. So we're not taking like Sue.
Yeah, he non-legendary defensive player to this defense. It would be
we're doing defense only. Does the Levante count as legendary?
He's in the best ever discussion.
Okay, I'm just
wow.
He didn't win any of the major awards or anything like that.
It's okay.
So
it's hard to win.
I know. I'm just
neither did Ed Stewart.
Legendary is a subjective measure, so I was just checking. DB.
Yeah, that's
gotta be all.
Wow.
So does Prince count? Because he was a first-round draft pick. I can't pick Prince.
We don't. Prince was maybe a better pro than we liked him in college.
Maybe.
Did we? I don't know. Am I misremembering? Did we have an affinity for Prince?
I thought so by the time he was like a junior.
I don't. I'm not sure. I'm not denying. I don't know. I don't hear people say, "Ooh," like I think he gets forgotten about.
Who was the other corner? Went to the Patriots.
No, it was the Browns or the Bears.
Dennard.
Oh, he's a Bengal.
He played for the Patriots at one point too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. After the Bengals.
After the Bengals. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people like Dennard more than Amukamara. But Dennard would be a good one on this team.
Yeah, and he fits the non-legendary.
Yeah, for sure. Because what he ended up like 5th or 6th round draft.
And I didn't bat an eye at Haig because that's ideally who I want.
Oh, I love Haig. I just
especially
don't know.
if he stays at the fields. If he stays field.
I just don't know if I want to take Gifford off the field.
I know.
That'd be my only issue.
But those three are pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, that's fair. So you're taking. You mean you don't want to take Hartzog off the field, probably? So you're taking Singleton off the field?
It's not really so much who's coming off the field. It's as much as what this team needs.
So they need another safety.
Well, you're just thin.
Yeah. Thin on experience for sure.
Yeah. And a good one can be great in this defense.
Oh, 100%. I think Haig would be incredible in this defense.
You get to do so many things.
I mean, like this. Don't take this as Eric Haig hate. Like I love Eric Haig.
Oh. I remember my man. Who did he house that 95-yard punt return
against? That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Who was that against?
Because he's not that fast.
No, I know.
So like the reason I don't even know why he was back there.
That's no big deal.
Because he didn't return a lot of punts.
Who did he do that against?
It wasn't Texas, was it? I thought that gave him life against Texas one year.
I don't think it was Texas.
I'm gonna look it up.
It was. Gosh, it was in Lincoln, right?
It was Texas.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it in Lincoln?
2010 against Texas in Lincoln.
I didn't know that they.
That gave them hope.
Didn't he kind of bobble it?
Yes.
Scooped it up off the ground or something?
Yes.
I remember
that. Was that's one of the more bizarre ones just because you're like, A, I don't know why he's back there. And then B, he's not a burner.
How about when Cleveland drafted him? I think he was like a 6th
or 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of mad. I was kind of bummed that he didn't stick because I was like, man, I think he's really good at football. I just didn't know if he could make it.
Yeah, that was like that weird stretch of really, really good safety play that without a lot of elite level So that had who am I thinking?
I mean, you throw Gomez in that same category.
No, son of a gun.
What era?
Ciante Evans.
Oh yeah. Ciante Evans.
Yeah.
You had.
I remember they were playing Northwestern, and it was in a 2x2.
He wasn't quite as good, but Larry Asante was in there too.
Oh yeah, the assassin.
Man, he brought the thunder.
Fearless.
Yeah.
So
he smacked people.
So I remember is it 2x2 set, and there was a little inside slot receiver for Northwestern. Can't remember. He wore 11 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have been in bracket, and he lined up on the hash, and kind of gave him a two-way go. Just got beat on the inside, and whoever was playing quarterback just threw him like a little skinny. You like bang his head on the goalpost. And I was like, that's just simple alignment.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
can't give, like, you turn him loose inside, there's no one home.
Mhm.
And I don't know why that sticks out. I don't know if that was the game where they ran it 18 times in a row to close it out.
I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
But there was a
I
play,
don't think so, but I might be wrong.
but it was just simple alignment.
Yeah.
And who was that little dude? Did he wear 11? I'm really just
For Northwestern,
yeah,
I'm not going to
Slot-
get that. I'm not going to get that one for you.
slot receiver.
Yeah.
Yep. He was number 2 on the right side. Just
I can get you Matt O'Hanlon. I can't get you
didn't get hands on him, got inside, and just like dunk right on the goalpost. I was like, wow, we can't give that that one's gonna hurt. I like Keontae Evans a lot.
Is there anybody that you would consider a non-legend from your era on the defense that you would put on this team? What about like a Baron Miles? Is he a legend?
Yes.
Okay.
He's in the GOAT discussion.
Okay.
At the position.
It gets a little tricky when you go back to that era because a lot of people are
Good.
in legendary status, right?
Yeah, and when you play on the same team as Tyrone Williams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I assume Tyrone wouldn't count. So
even John, like he gave me Keo Craver. Craver probably falls more in the underappreciated because he really was good, but he would be an amazing nickel guy in this defense.
what about like a DeJuan Gross?
He's elite though.
Okay. But we were most
Craver could be. I mean, I'm splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Craver doesn't come up a lot in discussions. If
No.
John's going to sell me on that, I would agree.
Yeah.
Because he was fantastic, arguably one of the best athletes to ever be on that campus.
You want the burner Fabian Washington?
Again, probably more popular for being drafted early than
Yeah.
I think we remember him as a player.
Yeah, I think so.
But wow, I'm just thinking about playing Keo in the nickel. He could help fit in the run game, especially in like the RPO game. He'd be really good.
Is there anybody that you would take in the linebacker spots? Because I feel like that's a spot we don't love.
Potentially,
with this team,
like because they're very athletic, like Bullock and Wright.
Yeah,
and Bear, like those guys got a chance.
Well, then you brought in Thompson from UCLA.
Yeah, not as high. Syracuse,
sorry,
not as kinda
big body,
not as high,
big body
as some.
Yeah.
An angle guy that could play downhill. Because you got to be able to, D-gap guy. I'm on here. I don't know. Be interesting to see Jamel play inside in this defense because he's built a lot like Wright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Terrell Farley too much legendary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what he would do in this defense.
I don't know, but I'd let him do it.
He'd be too small to be a jack.
Yeah.
But situationally, he definitely could rush the passer.
Coming up next, we've got Mark Wisdom. He's the Executive Vice President of Pinnacle Bank. Going to talk a little Pinnacle Bank Championship here on Herd at Sports Radio. Welcome back to Herd at Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by Mark Wisdom. He is the Executive Vice President of Pinnacle Bank, as well as a member of the Support Nebraska Board, which runs the Pinnacle Bank Championship. Mark, how are you this morning?
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. Doing well.
Appreciate it.
Mark, so as we're getting down to the nitty gritty, what are you most excited about for this year's Pinnacle Bank Championship?
Like every year, this is our 8th year for the Pinnacle Bank Championship presented by Woodhouse this year, and I really enjoy all the Nebraska guys that we get to see that get to come play, on a big stage, hoping to make it to the PGA Tour. So, this year we probably should have 4 to 6 Nebraska players playing again. So excited to see them for sure.
So how important is it? Because the numbers are staggering, right? You got 83% of the current PGA Tour members are Korn Ferry Tour alumni. Like, when you look back at the data and statistics, you think we're appreciative enough of the quality of golf that we'll see here and have seen on the tour?
Well, I think when you go out and watch them, you really appreciate it. That's for sure. So hope everybody can make it out. But you're exactly right. I mean, I think the tour does a great job, showcasing the top 10 in the world. But it's really hard to get down to that next level and showcase those folks until they show what they can do. But yeah, of the top 10 in the world, 5 or 7 of them, or 5 of the top 10 currently, came through the Korn Ferry Tour. So Scotty Scheffler played in Omaha twice.
Yeah.
He's the current world number 1. So just getting to see folks like that could potentially come through to be the number 1 in the world. It's pretty cool.
So, Mark, you mentioned Scotty Scheffler. You've got guys like Victor Hovland, Wyndham Clark. Like, the alumni list goes on and on. But I think one of the coolest parts about both the Pinnacle Bank Championship and the Korn Ferry Tour in general is that you get to see just how good some of these guys are that maybe we won't ever necessarily hear of on the PGA Tour, but we still get to experience their greatness at places like the Pinnacle Bank Championship. Do you have any stories of some of those types of guys that you've seen over the years that have really kind of impacted you?
Well, I think our local Scott Gutschewski is a terrific story. He's bounced back and forth between the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour for quite a few years, and this year he's played in 14 PGA Tour events, and we won't know if he'll be back to play in the Pinnacle Bank Championship for another couple weeks, depending on how he continues to play on the PGA Tour. But if you just look at Scott's career over time and really how well he's done and the longevity that he's had, being from Ralston and then playing for the University of Nebraska, it's pretty special to see somebody like him over that period of time when probably not everybody in the nation appreciates somebody like Scott and everything that he's done. But man, he's done a heck of a job.
It's all in the name. I get it was a 501c3, but Support Nebraska, it means just that for you. When you intertwine the two, is the backbone of the Pinnacle Bank Championship. How important is the pride that we take in this event? The host year after year after year after year. It's the only one and the longest standing. That has to make you feel pretty good.
It really does. This year we plan to eclipse the $1 million given to charity mark since we've started the tournament, so we're pretty excited for that. Every year attendance keeps creeping up a little bit here and there, so we continue to focus on that. We get over 600 volunteers over the 7 days from quite a few states that come in to help us out there as well. So, we do take a lot of pride in this tournament and having it here in Omaha, and we're glad to have it back again this year.
At the end of the day, is the volunteers, is that the toughest part? Is we talked to Jim last week, and getting the course ready and the management, and I get the ag stuff, but just the amount of man and woman power that you need is got to be incredible.
It is
people power.
Yeah, people power. Exactly right. Last year, I think, Jessica, who runs the tournament, said, we had over 8,300 volunteer hours to get through the tournament. So that's a lot of hours, a lot of manpower that's needed. They do a great job recruiting volunteers, and the number, I don't know the exact percentage, but the number of people that come back year after year to volunteer is pretty amazing as well.
Mark, you mentioned you're hoping to pass that $1 million mark in charitable donation this year. What are some of the things that money goes to help support?
Sure. It kind of changes every year. Last year, our big focus was one of them was Project Harmony. First Tee of Omaha has always been a big recipient. Nebraska Golf Foundation, just to name a few, just from last year.
Mark, that's a super cool part of what we do here, or that you guys do here, that we luckily get to be a part of as your partners as well, that I think maybe not a lot of people know about. What's another thing that kind of the Pinnacle Bank Championship brings to the area that maybe people are not quite as aware of?
Sure, I'd say from an amateur perspective, Indian Creek has the Indian Creek Invitational this weekend, where Nebraska amateur players come play to win that title, and the winner gets an exemption into the Pinnacle Bank Championship. So, for a lot of high school, college, and even regular amateur players get a chance to where if they can get hot for a weekend, they could go play in front of a pretty good crowd at Indian Creek and really boost their career.
Yeah, figuratively awesome. and literally, because it is going to be a scorcher. So for the young guys, man, their endurance will be part. I mean, that's part of it, right? That's one of the hidden things, Mark, that is going to matter, and the young guys will be tested this weekend.
Yeah, they do a lot better job taking care of their bodies than probably we did a long time ago. Yeah. They're not the golfers of the 70s and 80s, that's for sure.
Not a lot of John Daly's out there anymore.
Turn and burn.
Very few.
Mark, we appreciate the time, and we appreciate we'll see you out there in less than a month now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
That's Mark Wisdom, Executive Vice President of Pinnacle Bank and a member of the board of Support Nebraska, which runs the Pinnacle Bank Championship.
I'll hold my cigarette while I line this putt up. Are we cool?
It kind of reminds me, like, you have a little bit of that in, like, baseball, too, right? You remember kind of like the 80s baseball bodies where it was, you had
a lot of Rick Russells out there.
A lot of Rod Becks out there. R.I.P. You had some David Wells going on. Like there was some,
and it developed such a misnomer too about what it took to actually play the game.
Yep.
I'm like, you guys have no idea how hard this is.
And like 90% of the dudes were in great shape.
Yeah,
but you just had these few outliers.
I mean, David Wells didn't help himself talking about how you could pitch hungover.
Yeah, how he pitched the perfect game hungover, right? Yeah. David Wells has lots of problems, though. We won't get into David Wells today, but
no,
talk about old Yankees that I hate. That could take up an entire day in July.
And you got to save some of that for Deion Sanders, and when those guys take the podium,
there'll be plenty of vitriol for Deion Sanders left.
So, were you vibing with your Mark when he called them the deepest conference in football?
No,
top to bottom.
No, I don't think so.
It's kind of weird. I mean, who are the really bad teams? Would it be?
So I have to look
Arizona State,
because I forget who's in the
TCU, K-State
all the time now.
TCU. So went yesterday was TCU, K-State, Cincinnati Tech, I think Houston, Arizona State, and of course Okie State. Today is Colorado, Kansas, West Virginia, Arizona, Whitney Houston, Baylor Shireman, and the Mormon Brigham Young.
Is Baylor going to be good this year? They were a little rough.
No,
Arizona State I don't think it's going to be very good.
I got a team I like. I just don't think they're getting enough run.
Arizona kind of got decimated.
Yeah,
and I don't know that they're going to be good.
Yeah, I think losing Fish will hurt.
Yeah, and then they lost a bunch of dudes after that as well. I don't think Colorado's good. Now they've got a NFL quarterback, so that changes things.
You're always going to be well. They have two first rounders.
Yes, right.
Offense.
So that changes things. But I still don't look at that as a good football team. So I don't know how you want to deal with them. They have a lot. So it's weird because they have a very healthy middle class.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't look at that. I'm like, oh, they can win a national championship, or they can win right? I don't look at any of their teams.
I mean, who are your front runners? That would be K-State and
Kansas.
Well, see, I think Kansas is flying under the radar.
I mean, I think Kansas is one of the best teams in this league. Utah. I mean, Utah's probably your.
Those are the two front runners. It's Utah and Kansas State.
Yeah. So like,
I think I would call Kansas is going to be my dark horse.
Yeah, I like Kansas a lot. I mean, you don't have to sell me on Kansas, but I don't look at any team in this league outside of maybe if Cam Rising and Utah are what I thought they were going to be last year.
Go look at Kansas's schedule.
Sets up nice. Is it a little Iowa-y?
It kind of does.
Is it a little Iowa-y?
Well, they're at BYU late, but that's game 3. They get Colorado at home in November, and then they close at Baylor.
I'll take a look at that schedule during the break. And
it's interesting.
I don't know. We might have to. I don't think your Mark's right, but it's not a bad conference for sure.
I'll tell you more after they play Illinois on the 7th.
We'll be back to wrap up the show here on Herd Out Sports Radio. Welcome back as we wrap up the show here on Herd Out Sports Radio. AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DBM Ravi Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage at Herd Out Sports Bar and Grill. DB, how you doing?
I'm good.
You doing all right?
Yeah.
How you feel about Kansas?
I feel pretty good.
I feel like you like Kansas.
I do. I like Daniels too.
I do too.
And I really like their coach.
Yes. That's the thing for me more than anything is I'm just trusting Lance Leipold to be good.
Yeah, I can't unsee like teams just scoring at will.
Yeah.
But I mean, got a chance to get better defensively. That the schedule is interesting.
It is. It's not daunting.
No.
There's a lot of teams that could be solid, but I don't look at anybody on this schedule and go, Kansas can't beat them.
Yeah.
There's not a single.
I think November 16th at BYU.
That's a tough one. I think at Kansas State's going to be a tough one. Obviously,
Yeah, but they avoid Utah.
They avoid Utah. Which is the big one. I mean, really.
Well, and UCF.
Yeah.
UCF's going to get somebody.
Probably. I just don't know what they'll be over the course of a season.
Yeah.
Like, I think they'll bite somebody for sure. I just don't know. Like, I don't know over 12 games.
Who has them late? Utah?
Yeah, I think so. Which that could be a little scary.
Yeah.
It depends on where UCF and then Utah's mindsets are at that point in the season. But, you look at we were talking about the Big 12 and whether we think Yormark's right that they're the deepest conference in the country. I think they have a very robust middle class. That's how I would put it.
Kind of.
I think that there is maybe one team that could compete for a national title. That's Utah, and that's a stretch for me. That'd be like a sleeper. I don't think they're given by any means to even make the playoff. Although I do think they've got a good shot at making the playoff. But then I look at so it's to me Kansas State, Kansas.
How did Kansas avoid Okie State?
I don't know. I assume Oklahoma State will be good again this year, but not great. That's the teams we're talking about here. I think, wouldn't surprise me if Iowa State was solid again. I like Matt Campbell a lot.
Well, it depends. Their quarterback play. I mean, year two.
Yeah, you're hoping that
he can make a jump.
You're hoping that gets better from last year.
Yeah,
but
just up and down.
Yeah, a little evens out a little bit.
But you lose a couple draft picks off that defense too.
Yeah,
but I mean, Haycock, he just keeps cranking them out.
Well, I like Iowa State as a football program. I think they've done a really good job there. That's a really difficult job. But I don't think Arizona State, Baylor are going to be any good. BYU could be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with BYU. We'll see what happens with UCF. But there's not a lot of there's hardly any scary teams in this conference. So I don't know. If you want to
do you know that? And I say this as though Nebraska's been good, but it's not in comparison to Nebraska. It's them being their own benchmark. Mm-hmm. You remember the last year Matt Campbell won 9 games? Oh,
it's been a minute. 2017?
2020.
Oh, he won 9 in COVID.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
that. No. He yeah. And they won the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
So in 2021 they were 7-6, then 4-8, then 7-6.
Mm-hmm.
And people talk as though, I don't know about Campbell beating top teams and some of the shine, and it's been a long time since, Brocktober.
Mm-hmm. Breece Hall, it's.
But so the weird thing about since 2015 with Matt Campbell,
mm-hmm.
How many 9-win seasons does he have?
3.
I'll give you another crack at it.
9-win seasons since how many? Since 2015?
Yeah, since he got there, 2016. How many 9-win seasons does Matt Campbell have?
I know he's got 2, at least.
Try again.
Is it just the 1?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He went 8-5 in 2017 and 8-5 in 2018.
Okay. So he had 3 8-win seasons. That's what I was. Okay. I mean,
he's had 2 8-win seasons.
Well, and then a 9-win season.
And then a
8 or more.
Yeah.
I'm counting, come on.
Are you surprised by that?
I thought the 8s were 9s, but that's that's why I said
about
3
right.
is that's where my head was. I knew he's had a handful of 7 and 6s. I knew he had a couple,
and he has
a couple of down ones.
He has the Coach Ferentz bugaboo too, the head-to-head.
Yeah.
So it's like I like him. I think I like him more than the numbers.
I do too. So I put the numbers in context of Iowa State historically.
Okay, that's
historically. I think this is. I'm going a ways back now. I think historically they have 7 8-win seasons in their history, and he's got 3 of them.
That would be something.
I think that's right. I was looking this up. This was years ago at this point.
Did you say 7?
I think.
Well, they had 3 between 2004 and 2009.
Yeah, and I don't know that they have much more before that.
They had back-to-back in 2001, 2002.
Okay, so
they had 9 in 2000, and then it gets pretty dark.
So it might be 3 of the 10 or something.
It gets pretty dark.
Yeah,
I mean, you go back to 71 when they had 8. Wow, and that was Johnny. You got to go back to Johnny Majors.
So he's got like something like 30 or 35% of their 8-win seasons all time.
Yeah.
So like in the context of who Iowa State's been, that matters to me.
So
maybe it was seasons ending or seasons they've been right. I don't remember.
Do we remember Dan McCarney for being better than he was, or not at all?
We do.
Okay.
Because I think he had 1 or 2 good seasons at Iowa State.
Well, he went 7-7, 7-5, 9-3.
Yeah. So he had a nice little 3-year stretch there.
Then he went in 2004 and 2005. He went 7-5 back-to-back years.
But I think we remember him more fond. And again, but I think it's within context of who Iowa State was before that.
How many people do you think remember that Gene Chizik coached at ISU?
As the OC, right?
As
the head coach. He was the head coach for just 1 year, 2 years. And he was terrible.
Yeah, it was not good under Chizik.
No, he was 2-19 or something, or 2-10 1 year.
He's 5-19 in his career.
So he was 2-10 and 3-9 1 year, and then he somehow gets the Auburn job.
Paul Rhodes lasted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
I feel like we think better of Paul Rhodes than he was.
I do too,
because we liked him. I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
But
he didn't really get. He didn't even get to McCartney Heights.
So the prowess, I'm vibing with the relative to Iowa State.
Yeah, like they've been more consistent under Matt Campbell in terms of
how many losing seasons has Matt Campbell had?
So he's got the 4-8. I think he had at least 1 on the front end, maybe 2. I'll call it 3.
He's only had 2 losing seasons.
His first and then the 4-8.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he had 2 on the front end or just 1.
That's pretty legit.
And unheard of at Iowa State. That's why I have an affinity for Matt Campbell, because I think that's an incredibly hard job. And
I liked being he's
historically,
I liked being around him.
It is a job where it has been hard to be as consistent as he has.
Yeah.
And so that's really the only context I can put it in, because you can't measure Iowa State on a Ohio State standard, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. Now, eventually, someday, I'm sure Iowa State wants to get to a place where they can be measured by a different standard. But, what were we just talking about? Measuring them against themselves?
Well, don't they take it game by game, as in like at least I envision Iowa State looking at it as like, we got to beat Iowa, or at least play tough, make that a game, and then win one other game.
Good enough anymore? Do you?
But it seems like that's what they've done in the past, though.
Yeah, I don't know that it is.
I think that fan base. I think it's important for them to beat Iowa.
I do too.
I don't think the play tough is a thing.
I think they need to. I think they really want to beat Iowa, but I also think they understand. I don't know. I don't know if they've soured on Matt Campbell as much as some people did nationally on him. I would hope they understand the context of which he's been successful.
Yeah.
At their program. Like that's, and it's hard for fans to take in like realistic and rational expectations of where the program's currently at.
It's going to be weird not watching the Big 12 play the round robin schedule.
Yeah. They don't want to play 15 regular season games this year.
Apparently it's not that big of a deal. Just keep adding teams to the playoffs.
I mean, we
play 15 now, right? If you play for
no big deal.
I think it's 17 now.
Yeah.
That's what Coach Rule keeps telling me.
It is.
We got to have 17 guys, or we got to have 3 guys to get through 17 games.
He is built.
Wow. He's probably right, though.
Unfortunately, he may end up being right.
Oh, I don't think he's wrong.
I mean,
that's the only reason I know it off the top of my head.
It's hard to keep guys clean for 17
because he just keeps telling me, "Hey, we're gonna need 2 or 3 quarterbacks to through 17 games."
Stop it.
For you guys, I appreciate you guys.
What? That's what he keeps saying.
I just detect another. Yeah, exactly. Me too. That's what I think.
I just think it's funny. I think that's his little way of talking around that Dylan Raiola is.
Yeah, well, I mean, give yourself some credit if you know that that's what he's doing. Don't let it move your needle.
I don't. I think it's funny. Like every time it comes up with Dylan, he's like, yeah, he'll say something nice about Dylan a bit, but we need. I think we're going to need 2 or 3 guys to play all the games we're going to need.
History shows he's
right.
History shows he's accurate.
Yeah, I get it, especially at Nebraska recently.
Yeah, it's been hard to have a guy start every game at Nebraska in the last 6-7 years, virtually impossible.
Much like Stained, it's been a while. That's DB. I'm Robbie Lulo. We will be back tomorrow. It's Thursday already, DB.
I know, it's incredible.
We're halfway through the week. We're ready to go. We will be back tomorrow with more Herd Out Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln.